Welcome to a creative affair. And you're here with Len Metcalf and Bree Stockwell. And today we have the most special conversation, a discussion about connecting with other creatives, a creative connection, or maybe not even other creatives, connecting with people and maybe even subjects. And this is a subject that's incredibly close to both of our hearts. And our podcast really is an example of an incredibly special creative connection. And I was just telling Bree before we got on air this morning that we record Wednesday mornings here in Sydney town where I live, and it's sacred time with Bree. My time with Bree is incredibly sacred, and recording this is a very special time. And it's because of our creative connection. So this is actually the episode today's Bree's idea. So Bree, what is it about creative connections for you, my dear?
Oh my goodness. Oh, I love this topic so much. By the way, it's we do 4 p.m. here. So, and here's what happens. We make about a 30-minute episode, but it takes us 2 hours. Doesn't it? How is that possible? We can make it short.
Well, we warm up. We have to warm up our voices and our conversation. And then we also have to catch up.
I know.
Tell each other what we've been doing.
Yeah, we talk about all kinds of stuff. So, and which is why I thought that it would be really nice to talk about connection. I've had some experiences recently that have really shown me the value of connecting. One very recent, good dear friend of ours passed away a little over a week ago. So my husband and I traveled for his life celebration, which was really beautiful. And we had the opportunity to, this isn't about connecting with other creatives, but this is just me reflecting on connections. And we had the opportunity to, reconnect with some really some lifelong friends. And I came home thinking about how special that was. That reconnection was so special. And I have, some really, I'm like holding on to those memories close because it was just a really special few days. Also, maybe a week or so ago or more, and actually over the past few months, I've had the opportunity to just actually connect via Zoom with some other creatives and even actually in person. A friend of mine, Eugene, messaged me and he said, "Hey, can we chat over Zoom? I really want to talk about this topic." I said, "Absolutely. Here's a link." And it was so nice. And we just talked about, he's a photographer. He's in the UK. Is he in Scotland? I'm sorry, Eugene, if I'm messing that up. He's in the UK. Anyway, and we just talked about this one, topic about photography and for like 30 minutes or maybe more. And it was so, so nice to just connect and see each other and see each other's faces and our different expressions, and there were no big barriers. Sometimes when we get on social media and we're typing, it feels less personal. But to have someone like actually in front of you on your computer screen and you can see their face and you can see their expression and you can kind of see glimpses of their emotions, that to me is really special, especially if you're just doing one-on-one, kind of like we are now. And I can see all of Len's expressions. He's smiling and he's rubbing his beard, which means he's happy.
That's right. That's my happy place under here. My father used to rub his chin underneath, whatever. It's the Adam's apple, isn't it? I've inherited it from, or copied it from him. I don't know.
Yeah, that's great.
It's cute.
Yeah, that's great. How about you, Len? How have you been connecting with others recently? And what does that do for you?
I threw up a post a long time ago, actually, or maybe just maybe a month or two. But it was, hey, I love mixing my visual art with people's words. And if you're interested, I'm happy to talk and do projects with people. And out of that, just a week ago, a lovely, beautiful person has appeared and said, "Yes, I'm a poet." I'm also a photographer and a filmmaker. And I have this really big dream of doing this huge book with all these poems by poets from all over the world and photographers. And you obviously know lots of photographers. And I immediately said, yes, I'll help. I'll be a part of it because of this desire and also this deep understanding that working with other people in collaborations and having these connections is just so magical. And also knowing that project is probably, when we first started, that's an impossible dream, isn't it? That one, as you would call it, an impossible goal.
It is an impossible goal.
And so I immediately I chunk it down in my mind and go, what can we do really simply, quickly to get us going and underway and see whether the connection is strong enough to work and how we can work together? And I immediately sent one of my beautiful folded signs printed on incredible Japanese washi paper that is printed on one sheet and you fold up into a little book. And I'm like, oh, we can just do something with a couple of poems and a couple of my photos, and I can print this and I can post it to you and you can write on it. And we're going to do a limited edition, and she's going to handwrite the poems in, and we're going to sell them and give the money to charity. And it's something that we can do. And we're up to the first 3 pages. Like we've got the photo and the poem and we're putting it down and going, well, this is how it's working. And interestingly, you're talking about how you communicate. We communicate on an app. I think it's called Telegram, and we send voice messages to each other. And oh my God, it's such a revelation to send a voice message than sitting there typing out the thing. And not like writing's not my thing. I do write, but it's struggle. But if I just sit in a chair and I've learnt just to trust myself and I start rattling on and 10 minutes is gone and I've managed to say all of these beautiful things and I feel more me. And when I listen to them, I get really motivated and I'm actually there in present, really listening to what they're saying. And the communication is magical. And I really just value that connection with someone on the other side of the world, like with you. Working on a project together. How long it goes for, who knows? But it's motivating, it's exciting, and we're doing something that either of us would struggle to do alone, but we can create something together. So that's one that's just happening and that started a week ago, Bree, since we last spoke. And isn't that amazing?
You move fast. So good. Well, when you know it's right and it feels good, yeah, go.
Yeah, exactly. And waste no time. Like get in there before the energy goes. I think creativity, well, maybe not creativity. I'm going to rephrase that. Ideas have energy, don't they?
Yeah.
And if they slip out of your hands, you lose some of that and they lose the impact and the excitement of them. And some come back to you, and I can tell you with great authority of my own experience and no one else's, but just from me, that some ideas, if you leave them go, they'll turn up in someone else's hands. They're almost like ephemeral and they're living out there in the ether. And if you don't pick them up, one day you'll be noticing someone else doing that idea that you had and you're going, grumpy with yourself. It's like, why didn't I pull that out? Like you might be really happy that they've done that and picked it up as well, which I've learnt to do.
Have you read Big Magic? Did you read that book, Big Magic?
I you put me onto it, but I haven't read it. I skimmed bits of it.
We'll put a link to the show note in the episode notes, but it's by Elizabeth Gilbert, who is the author of Eat, Pray, Love. My friend Michael told me about it. Anyway, she says the exact same thing in this book, Big Magic. And ideas do have energy. It's super interesting, right? And what's so interesting is when you have an idea and someone else has this very similar idea and you end up having the idea at the same time and then you work together like that. That's not, I feel like those kinds of things are not really coincidence. Like somehow the universe aligned itself to make it happen in that moment, like our connection, I think of all the little things that had to happen so that we could have this connection. And I don't think that that's coincidental, but also we moved forward. We had these ideas and then we just moved forward with it, not being wishy-washy, not second guessing ourselves, just continuously like, well, let's just try that. We'll do that. Let's keep moving. I have an app called Marco Polo, and it's a video one where you can have like a group chat and so I can see my friends' faces, and I a lot of times will send people on Instagram little voice messages. You can do it in a 1-minute snippet, but instead of typing, I just send a little personal voice message, partly because I have too much to say that I do not want to write. So it's self-preservation. But also it's nice to hear. All right. And you know what? I usually get someone else's voice message in return a lot of the times. And I like hearing someone's voice. There is something about there's something magical and energetic about seeing people in person, but also hearing voices or connecting with them face to face, even if it's over Zoom or over video or, whatever. It's always better in person, always better in person. And I want to say this too. I sent an email. I'll just plug this right now for you guys. I send an email weekly on Mondays. It's called Monday Motivation. And this past week, so if you haven't subscribed to my email list, subscribe and you'll get those. Okay. So this past week, you like how I did that, Len?
Yeah.
So this past
I'll have
week,
to remember to squeeze one in myself.
Yeah, right. So this past week, I sent out an email and I was thinking about how motivated I have felt after having these connections with people. And after, I feel more creative, I feel more motivated to do my own personal work, because after I have these connections, there is this energy. And I think that's partly what we get from making the connections. And so I actually encouraged everyone on my email list to schedule a 15-minute chat with me and just connect with me via Zoom. No one's taken me up on it, but if you want to.
Oh, why not? I'll book one in now.
Message me. Message me. The offer's there. You know why? Because I think it's really important. Okay, right after this, we'll chat for 15 minutes.
We've already had our 15 minutes this morning.
It was like 30 or 45. So, but this is how much I value the connection is I'm willing to give my time for free to connect with other people. I think it's super valuable for me, even though I don't make any money from it. I'm using my time. What I get in return from the connection, it's priceless. And I really value that. And I think it's really important that we do this in our creative community. I actually have made a connection with a painter close by, and that's been really amazing. And I can't wait to do some sort of collaboration with her. But anyway, you can connect with people that are not of your same genre, like you connected with a poet. Do you know what I mean? I'm just wondering what is coming up for you while I'm saying all this stuff.
Connections with anyone give us energy, don't they? Let's say positive connections, and just to make that clear, I'm sure there's negative connections that take energy away from us and drain us, and all those sort of things. And of course, some of us are more extroverted and introverted than others, and there's lots of discussion about that. But putting all that aside, what does any type of connection have with someone else do for you as a creative? And I was thinking about this in terms of course, there's creative collaborations, and we've spoken about that over and over, how special they are. And I could go on and on about doing stuff with other people, but just as simple as putting a photo on social media and someone writes a comment and you start a conversation with them. And I really, instead of saying, oh, I love that, or just hitting like, someone says, oh, I really, can you see the face in the side of that wall over there? And then, oh, really? I hadn't seen that. What else can you see in there? And this whole conversation starts around one of your artworks. And it just grows and grows. And I'm really interested to see what they see in it. And one of my little rules is I don't ever tell anyone what to see in it, because how you witness your own, someone else's art is totally personal. And you have this internal dialogue and you see what you want to see. And engaging someone in that conversation, I find that uplifting, and it makes me want to go and make more of it. And I want to have more of those conversations, and I wonder who else I can have them with. And I get an uplift and that creative energy from that connection with total random person that just happens to bump into one of your artworks and is bothered enough or motivated enough to actually write something on it and then start a whole conversation. I love that. And I get uplifted through that process, and that forces or creates more creative energy in me.
I love that too. I will ask a question sometimes when I post that people don't always get to the question. I think we get busy and we do end up just liking. And so I think we can't make all connections all the time. So when I connect or comment, I want to be very deliberate about it. I have a friend, Eric Erlenbush, and he almost always, I've talked about him before too, right? I don't know. I love his work. And partly because he's always showing us how to be curious and asking the questions and really instigating conversation and creating those connections and discussions about art. And I think that's such a beautiful thing. Before, when you were talking, I was remembering when I hosted my solo, it took me a while to call it a solo exhibition because it sounds so fancy. So
It definitely was. It is. We can anoint you with that word.
But it was, right? I did everything. So when I hosted my solo exhibition in my home, and it was so magical to me to have people so I was connecting with people in person, but also I was watching them connect with my work and my art. And I didn't know. I just did, and you've experienced this, Len, but I didn't know how amazing that was to watch someone look at your art in person with you right there versus social media or whatever, and have the conversation about it, or watch an expression, or watch them kind of maybe even go into a memory that might be triggered by the work. All of that to me is the culmination of connection for me, that time. And I actually didn't even know that that's what I would get out of it until I did it. And so I just knew I needed to do this thing. So that was just a really beautiful thing. If you can ever connect in person with your art and, other people who are enjoying it, that to me is the ultimate, connection. So what a beautiful thing to watch other people connecting.
I just finished. I just finished an article for Better Photography on exhibitions, and it was 5,000 words or something, way beyond what I'm supposed to be writing for my target, which I think is about 2,000 words. And it just streamed out of me. And luckily, the editor says I love these articles when you just go into this total streaming. And I've had so many exhibitions throughout my whole life, and it's what you're just talking about there, Bree, is the reason that I exhibit. It's not to sell. It's not to show off. It's to stand there and have those conversations with people, and to actually feel that incredible uplift of power and of enjoyment there. Connections. There's so many different connections to have, isn't there? I really think that connecting with other creatives is magic. And I will leap into absolutely any opportunity that I can get to explore that with another creative. One of the things I was thinking of there was, how do you know when you first are meeting someone and there's this little connection forming? How do you know to keep going with it? And I remember when we first met, Bree, and I just said to you, I know I want to keep talking to you. I don't know what it's going to be, but I just have this desire to keep talking because I felt there was an intellectual and an emotional connection with you, and I didn't know what it was going to be. And then later we sort of had our conversations are so good. Let's be sharing them with other people. Do you have any advice for us, Bree, on how do we know how to pursue a connection?
That was so good to make that connection together. And do I have advice? Let me think for a second. I think my answer for now is sometimes we don't know, or maybe like, how did I know? Do you know what I mean? I mean, you initially reached out to me and I was like, I don't know, maybe I'll give this a try. I don't know who he is. Do you know what I mean? I mean, we were having this conversation online, and so part of the answer is you don't know until you make the initial connection and then start to go deeper. But I think in that first conversation that we have, our first initial conversation, because remember, you reached out to me and you were like, hey, let's chat. And I said, okay. So we actually set up a little like WhatsApp phone call so we could talk to each other like voice to voice, which I think was really important. And during that time, I think it's really important to pay attention to how you're feeling. Like, what kind of energy do you feel like someone's giving to you? I also, too, at the end of the conversation, we said goodbyes and all the things, I was like energized. And so I think it's really important that when you're making a connection, you want to continue. Do you feel energized? Do you feel like, was the conversation motivating? Because you mentioned this earlier, I think, which was like, sometimes we have these connections where they don't feel so great. And I'm not saying that we initially discard those, but for sure, we want to pay attention to the ones that feel really good and keep up those connections. So one of the things that I've been doing in especially my creative work is to really pay attention to those little sparks of like inspiration, or, that could even be, I think we have talked about this before, that could even be with a connection, just that little feeling like I want more of this. And I really am trying to pay attention to that and then do more of it, like get the more of it. Right. So here we are, how many episodes later, doing the more of it, and we just tried to anyway, it's really awesome to be able to have that little spark and then also say yes and pursue the answer,
There's two things there, isn't there, Bree? One is the willingness to take that risk and adventure. And, it's the same as being an interesting artist. It's, having an interest in the world and other people and what's going on and educating yourself and learning. And so we automatically go, well, there's possibility here. So that wonderment and what's another word for that? That willingness to explore and take risks and do those is one part of it. And I agree with you. It's a feeling. Like really, when we sum up what you were saying there, you were talking about sparks flying and emotions. It's a little feeling, and it's the same feeling. We're making an artwork about something, and how do we know whether to keep going with it? And sometimes we stubbornly, plod on with it, but usually there's a pull, an emotional pull, and we try to follow that emotion. And it's like, and I always talk to my students about this inside where I get this energy that you're talking about, that the energy is uplifting and I want to follow it. And it's almost like playing hot and cold with a kid, hot, 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 no, cold, cold. and you're playing that with yourself, and you're trying to follow that feeling. And if it starts to dive down, it's like, oh, is this right? And yeah, we meet people and we get that feeling straight up, and it's like, no, stop, I'm getting out of this, and this isn't going where. But then, other connections, the threads, and we don't never know how long they're going to be, these connections and these threads are for, but we're drawn into them just so passionately and emotionally, and we follow that emotion. And of course, they don't go everywhere, but they go where is interesting for the two people, isn't it? It's like I think there's a weird saying that says that people come into your life for as long as you need to learn from each other. I can't remember the actual quote, but while there's a feeding off each other, that connection is really, really powerful, isn't it? And so motivating and worth exploring. So, yeah, emotions.
Yeah. And we just got touchy-feely. But the fact is that because we have a lot of emotions in our art, and we want to pay attention to those. Also, side note, all of the things that Len just talked about, we discuss even more in our episode about being a curious creative. I forget what the title is, but it's something about that. Anyway, I also think too, so we get this energy, we get motivation, we can get inspiration from connections, and we also learn. You just mentioned learning, and it's really important to, I think, for me, to make connections with others so I can learn from them. I mean, Len, you are so much more experienced than I am. So how do we, so I have personally learned a lot from you, and there are a lot of people that I've made connections with, had discussions with and whatnot that I have learned from. Even when I make connections with other people's art, I learn from that. And there's so much, we can't live in our own solo bubble.
It's what's wrong with the world. When we do try to live in our solo bubbles, that's what fucks up the whole world. Anyway, I'm very political about that one.
Right. And so, if we do try and live in a bubble, then we don't get the magic that you just mentioned of being able to feel that amazing energy and the motivation, and also learn. Like, I want to learn from other people. It's partly actually, I was going to say partly, but it's a big part of why I've been able to grow. I feel that I've been able to grow more as a photographer more quickly because I'm making connections and I'm learning from other people and being inspired by them and then repeating it, and I love being the person who's like, hey, why don't you connect with me? Let's connect together. I like being the instigator too, because who else is who else is going to do it? Like, I want to do this for myself too.
I really believe I'm lucky, and I think you are too, that people come into our lives around our art. Because we're putting it out there, we're making it, we're producing it, and an advertisement's the wrong word, but people are seeing it, and when they engage in it, these conversations. And I think one of the things that makes us special is that we don't do it in a bubble. Like, we just don't put up our work and expect someone to turn up and go, "Hey, Bree, that's really gorgeous. I think the sand in that photograph's a metaphor for your life." Well, actually my life. But so that doesn't happen, does it? What actually happens is that we go and actually talk to people and start conversations with people whose work we love and people that we find are interesting, and they notice our work, and it turns into a conversation, doesn't it? And as our work gets more and more out, it becomes more of a thing. And my work brings people to me now because I've been doing it my whole life. People that attend my workshops, if I run a workshop in a popular place, I get all sorts of strangers turning up. But if I run one in a weird, wonderful place that I think is really beautiful, all my fans turn up who really want to learn from me, and it has a different feel. And the work attracts certain types of people into your life who are interested in things that in what you have to say and what you're talking about. And your style and the way that you work and the subject that you photograph and all those sort of things. So I'm very, very proud to say that people come into my life now because of my art. And that's the way I meet people, is through art, and that's how I'm finding these connections. But it didn't start that way, and it's been a very, very, very long road. But it's a goal for people, I think, is sharing your work and having these conversations about it is so powerful.
I think it's been really interesting as I've shared my work, that I do attract people who work in such similar ways. I want to argue with you on one point. Okay, Len?
Good. We don't argue very often, do we?
No, absolutely. No, we don't.
I'm too much of a people pleaser to start an argument.
I know. Well, you brought up this idea of luck. And while I do think it exists, I think what really makes the difference is vulnerability and being able to put our work out there on purpose, because sometimes we kind of have to make our own luck. And if we want people to come to us and connect with us, then we have to sometimes put ourselves out there first and say, here I am, here's my work, here's how vulnerable I am. And then people will see how, what we're doing, what we're about. And two, for me, I think people see my realness and how real I am, and they connect to like for me, what you see is what you get. I don't do any pretending. And at least that's what I've worked to be or to become. When you talk to me, I'm just always the same. And so, and that's taken a lot of vulnerability on my own part to share my work, to share my stories, to put myself out there. And truly, we have to sometimes take the first step in making a lot of the connections. And that can sometimes feel kind of scary, to put ourselves out there and, because we don't know what people are going to think, right? And I don't know, it is just sometimes scary. So I just dare myself to do things.
It is. It's like, as a bit of, I have an interest in sociology and psychology, obviously, and it's really fascinating to track back a conversation and to the beginning, and it might just be beautiful. As a word gets popped on there, beautiful. And what do you do with someone says beautiful to your work? And there's so many choices, and the reply that you can put there actually changes the direction of things. It's like, oh, thanks, and the conversation's over. And, yeah, I really find that flower incredibly beautiful, and it's got a softness to it. What makes it beautiful to you? And you've asked a question, and it actually turns into a conversation rather than oh, thanks, I'm going to end that. And that one word was quite hard for that person to say. And then the sentence that comes back, and then the next thing you're getting a paragraph, and it continues and expands. And I found that opening up conversations rather than trying to close them down is very, very helpful in this process.
I think that takes time to kind of be curious and hone our confidence in our own work, to be able then to ask other people questions about it and be okay hearing some of the answers, And I think that takes some work here in our brains, but also that takes time as we, have experiences. So yeah, I love that. I love it when you do that, Len, and comment on my stuff and ask me a question or say how beautiful it is. And sometimes I really do respond, thank you, but it's a genuine thank you, So yeah, this is all, listen, I just think this is such a beautiful conversation about connection and how it helps us. And sometimes what stops us, I think a little fear stops us. And I just want to encourage all of our listeners to be vulnerable and make connections with people, and put yourself in a place where you can make more connections and watch people look at your art, and that there's really so involved involved in this connection part, so many different ways you can make connections. And I just encourage everyone to do that, because you will become a better person, and a better person, a better human, and also a better artist, I think.
And I love the word vulnerability. in that. And it is being vulnerable, and listening to what people have to say about it is at first confronting. And I can tell you over my life, I've had many a tantrum over what people have said about my work. And today, I'm really excited to hear what it means for other people. And because I've learnt that you can't control what someone else thinks about your work. They're having their own journey in it. It's a mirror to them. And I've just typed in another idea for an episode about mirrors and having different ideas in work. So, yes.
We're always thinking of episode topics while we're on here. So the very last thing I'm going to say is about vulnerability. There's an excellent, Brene Brown talks about a square squad. And if you don't know what that is, I'm not going to explain it, but I'm going to link to an article in the episode notes that you can read about it. Well, if you are someone who's very concerned or have been in the past very concerned about what other people think of your work, then this article is for you. So go and read that one, because I'm not going to tell you what a square squad is. It's just awesome. I need to make mine. Do you need to make your square, Len?
We talked about this a few weeks ago, and I mentally wrote it. I don't have it on the wall, but I mentally wrote it. I was so good. There was one or two people on it. So I was very, very pleased with myself. And actually it worked. Like it didn't work instantly, but, a few weeks later, I've stopped thinking about that.
Interesting. Okay. I think I have to tell what it is. It's you want to read more about it, but it's a 1-inch little piece of paper and 1 inch, whatever, wherever you are, right?
2.5 centimeters square.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We don't do that here. So anyway, I know what that size is, and it's only the people that you can fit on. You only put people that you care what they think on this small piece of paper. And the point is you can't care about everyone's opinions in the whole world, because you just can't. It's exhausting. So pick a few people. Could be probably maybe even up to 5, and write those people down on your paper. And those are the people's opinions that you care the most about. And everyone else is maybe gravy or gravy. Is that a saying for everyone? Anyway, you don't have to care.
What you're talking about.
You say things too. I'm like, what is that? Anyway, everyone else's opinion doesn't matter is what I'm saying. So you have a few people that you absolutely care what they think. And then everybody else, their opinions don't have to matter. So anyway, just go read the article. It's so good.
It's fantastic to do that mental separation into, yes, this is someone I listen to and I value their opinion, and no, this person isn't on my list. So their opinion doesn't matter to me. And yeah, I'm a people pleaser, and it's something I'm working on. And listening to people is one of my downfalls. So I've got to actually really carefully go, no, I'm not going to do that, or I'm going to draw a line in the sand, or I'm not going to follow that advice because they don't actually know enough about what's going on. So, yeah, the 1-inch square.
Right, exactly. I almost feel like this became 2 podcasts. But the whole point is that we're making connections, and sometimes our thinking about everyone's opinion can get in the way. So I just think that's something that we want to think about. Anyway, I feel like it's time to end this one. So
it is, isn't it?
Yeah, it feels like it. We just know. We have like this instinct that we just know. So everyone, we want to encourage you to go make your own connections with anyone. In fact, here is what we want you to do. Go right now, today, and go invite someone to make a personal connection with you. This is, I'm daring you or inviting you to do this. Just go make a personal connection with another creative and see what comes of it. Just invite them to engage with you via DM or have a 15-minute conversation with you. And it could be someone that you've looked up to and you just want to converse. So anyway, I just really think that this will make us better humans and creatives, and it really benefits the community. So that's my invitation.
And we invite everyone to connect with us as well, don't we? And we
Always.
Really look forward to that. And this idea about connections is the basis of our podcast. That creativity, but having a conversation and sharing ideas and exploring them is what a creative affair is about, very much so.
Absolutely. All right. Well, with that, it's time to say goodbye. See you next time, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us in our creative affair. If you love the passion we bring to this creative content, please support the podcast by sharing with a friend, subscribing, and leaving us a review. To find out more about Bree's work, including her gorgeous photography and mentoring in her Creative Confidence Group Coaching Program, please visit her at creativemindscoach.com. If you'd like to learn more about creative photography, you can find me at lenmetcalf.com, where you can find links to my photography school, videos, and publications. I would so love you to sign up to my newsletter. Well, until next time, it's time to say goodbye.